So today we're talking about choosing homeschool curriculum for 11th and 12th grade. That's right. But when you think about it, choosing a homeschool curriculum for any of the high school years can be stressful, right? I mean, now we're talking about 11th and 12th grade. I mean, this is life prep, right? Oh my gosh, what if my student doesn't have a plan for the post-high school years? Or worse, what if they want to go to college and I mess it up and they can't go? Ah! No worries. Today I'm going to help you. We're going to have some practical advice, that's right, and reviews of my favorite products for 11th and 12th grade. By the way, if you haven't watched part 1 of my Choosing High School Curriculum series, which was 9th and 10th grade, and that was from last week, I really suggest that you go and watch that, because knowing where your student is coming from is going to help you a lot in considering now where they're headed in these last 2 years of high school. So let's get started. So welcome to Homeschool University, where life meets learning. I'm Diana Applegate, and right now we're going to look at 11th and 12th grade curriculum as that curriculum would fall into one of 3 tracks. That's right, you have 3 tracks at this point in high school. You have a college track, the student who's definitely going to college. You have a vocational track, the student who's more interested in a career choice that doesn't involve college. And you have the undecided track. That is the student who literally has no idea what they want to do when they grow up, okay? Those are all fine. Every track has its value. It's just now finding curriculum to fit that. So let's take kind of a bird's eye view of each one of those tracks, and then we'll take a really focused look at how you would choose curriculum in each situation. So looking at the college track first. This is going to have overall more coursework to it, more rigorous. This is always going to be predicated by what the college is looking for. So when you get to the time when you're starting to look at curriculum for 11th grade, if you know your student is really going to be college bound, you're also going to look at 3 or 4 colleges that your student might be interested in. You're going to look at those schools' admission requirements. Everybody's going to have some suggestions. You're going to pick whichever school has the most rigorous suggestions. We're not even going to call them requirements because they're suggestions. And in that, then you're going to know kind of what kind of curriculum your student's going to need. We're going to take a look at a school that's basically a very good example of a state university. But before we do that, I just want to make one little side note here. College is not the place for your student to find their path in life. I'm just saying. The only student that should be going to college would be one who absolutely is passionate about a career that they cannot pursue without a college degree. That's it. A student who goes to college and tries to figure it out is most likely accumulating student debt at that moment while they're on that little path. Odds are that student, if they weren't gung-ho on college to begin with and they didn't really have a path, guess what? They're probably not going to find that path while they're wandering around freshman and sophomore year. What they're more likely to do is drop out after sophomore year when the college pretty much expects them to pick an actual major. So just saying, college is not the place to find yourself. College is the place to go because your career requires it. So enough about that. Let's go look at some of those admissions requirements.
So this is the website for the Office of Admissions of Michigan State University. And you'll notice that right in the middle of this, you have something called high school preparation. Yes. And notice it starts with MSU recommends that students do this. So here are the suggestions that they have. Number 1, they have 4 years of English, composition, and literature. 3 years of math, that'd be 2 years of algebra, 1 year of geometry, 3 years of social studies with a whole bunch of different titles in through that. 2 years of science, biology, chemistry, physics, or earth science, and 2 years of a single foreign language. This is really pretty representative of what you're going to find, but these things are going to give you a guideline as to How much math do we need? What sort of math? How much science? Do we need a foreign language? These questions are going to be answered when you go to the Office of Admissions for whichever colleges you are looking at.
The next track we're going to look at is the vocational track. This could be a student who is going to be an entrepreneur, right? Maybe they've already started a business, or they have a great idea that they're very passionate about for a business startup. Okay, so you've got an entrepreneurial student in this track. You've also got a military-minded student, someone who's going to be enlisting in the military out of high school. This is a great place for them to be. And also the student who's choosing a career that doesn't involve college. A trade, it could be the way that you look at it. Could be a hairstylist, could be a millwright, could be an electrician. Anything where college is not necessary and an apprenticeship maybe would be more appropriate. There is less core coursework as compared to the college track in this vocational track, but there are more career-specific skills that are being developed. So there's kind of a trade-off there. All right, so the last track we're going to look at is the undecided track. This track is going to look a lot like the college track because let's face it, if your student doesn't know what they want to do, they might end up wanting to go to college, right? So you want them to be prepared. What this really resembles more than anything else is what we were doing in 9th and 10th grade. It's that well-rounded, a very balanced general education that prepares them no matter where they decide they're going to end up once they get done with high school. One final note about these tracks and how they help you choose curriculum would be, keep in mind that the materials you're going to choose for the vocational track in particular, those might not be as rigorous or as in-depth as the materials you choose for the undecided or the college track. That's going to affect your curriculum choice, which track they're on, right? And the other thing that's going to affect curriculum choices at this point would be their learning style. Let's face it, when you get to 11th and 12th grade, your student is doing a lot of independent work on their own. If you hand a student materials that do not speak to their learning style at all, you're going to get a lot of eye rolling, right? A lot of pushback. You're going to get a child who's very reluctant to do the work that you've assigned to them. Instead, if you work within their learning style, you're going to be a lot better off in this. One way that you can hit all learning styles is to choose materials that may have an accompanying video. Because let's face it, you've got a visual learner, now they're watching someone. You've got an auditory, they're hearing someone talk about it. You've got a hands-on, and again, they're seeing someone actually possibly doing something with regard to that. By the way, a little note about the hands-on learning style at this stage. Just make sure that your curriculum materials have a practical application to them. Everything is constantly in the realm of theoretical, you're not going to reach them. So just saying. By the way, if you do not know your child's learning style, I highly recommend that you get The Way They Learn by Cynthia Tobias to give you some guidance in this area. I'll put a link to this book down in the comments below, but suffice it to say, that is what you need. That is all things learning styles. So let's dive into that more focused look at each of the learning tracks.
So we're going to start out talking about the college track, and we're looking at here a scope and sequence that I made for 11th and 12th grade in a Excel. This is just an Excel spreadsheet. I talked a lot about scope and sequence in my last video, but basically this is just a visual way of seeing where your students been and where they're going. The 9th and 10th grade scope and sequence that I showed was less specific than this. That was broken out pretty much just by grade. This is actually broken out by semesters to help us really take a close-in look at everything that's going on here. So let's start with math. Math, you can see you've got Algebra 2 plugged in here. Got to have Algebra 2 in a college track. Most schools do suggest it highly. If you've got a STEM major, be that, a science major, math, maybe medical, engineering, they're going to want to take pre-calculus / trig, which these two things are kind of synonymous, in 12th grade. But if you have more of a liberal arts major, art history, business, something that doesn't require a lot of math and science, personal finance is fine here, and just 1 semester of it. That leaves this little spot here open. No math class in the 2nd semester of 12th grade. Your high schooler will thank you. Next up, we have English on the writing side. We have 4 courses here that are from Institute for Excellence in Writing. That's IEW. I love them for the high school years. All 4 of these courses will definitely prepare your student for college writing. But I need to put a little note in here. If your child has never done anything with Institute for Excellence in Writing, then they're going to substitute something else in for these 2 courses. These 2 courses are going to be replaced by something I talked about in my last video, which is writing with structure and style. I would say use level C. That's the best way to actually learn the IEW method of writing, and then that'll allow them to go on to advanced communication and research papers. Next category, we have English on the literature side. See, we start out with U.S. literature, go into world literature. These are split by time periods. This is going to actually tie in with, down here, your social studies history study, because you see we're doing U.S. history here and world history down here. So there's a bit of a tie-in. Science. You've got biology with lab. That is super important. And then you've also got chemistry with lab. We'll be talking in a few minutes about how to teach lab science. I've got a resource for you on that. But the one thing I want to say about this, notice there's no physics here. That's because I don't really encourage teaching physics in the high school years homeschool. It's kind of difficult. There are some resources that are really useful in like a lab setting that a school would have, whereas you're probably not going to have them at home. The good news is the vast majority of colleges do not care. The few that I'm aware of that do want your student really to have some physics, they actually offer a preparatory physics course online through their instructors to prepare your students. So not to worry. Foreign language, got a modern language here, French, German, Spanish, whatever. You got 2 levels because most schools want to see 2 years of a foreign language. If you've already done this in the 9th and 10th grade years, you can just literally skip this year, or you can go on to a more rigorous study. Totally up to you. We already talked about history. Let's go down to principles of government. These 4 courses look really daunting, but I have some great materials for you that I'm going to share again when we get to the curriculum suggestions portion of this video. The last 2 categories, you got vocational education and electives. Everything down in this area actually comes off of my oldest son's transcript and his open sequence. He has a degree in mechanical engineering. These are things that applied to what he was interested in, so that's why we did them here. Little note, this little thing down here that looks weird, this is Extreme Ownership. This is an amazing book that I recommend for all 3 tracks to actually read sometime in 11th and 12th grade. This is written by 2 ex-Navy SEALs, Jocko Willink and Leif Babin. This book is amazing because it's all about how to take ownership of what is ours, of our own stuff, right? And specifically applied in a business world application. These guys have an actual consulting company, 2 businesses, to help their, not just management, but also even their team members with exactly this concept. So highly recommend it. So that is the college track. Now we're going to go on and look at the vocational track. So this is the vocational track. Same format as the college track, but we got some very different stuff in here. Let's start out again with math. Again, we have Algebra 2. Definitely, you know what? I recommend that for pretty much everybody. It's just a great solidification of logical thought. I'm just saying. So I'm sticking with Algebra 2 here. First semester of 12th grade, personal finance, because that is important. Everybody needs it pretty much. And then no math at all in that second semester. English. Notice that English, we got a lot less going on here, and it's very different. That's because the needs in the vocational track are different. We do have the elegant essay, which I highly recommend to everyone to take. It's just a great course from IEW. However, just like in the college track, if your child has never done IEW, then you're going to substitute in here writing with structure and style. That's going to be a year-long course instead of just the semester. If you do end up doing elegant essay, well, actually, whether you do one or the other, then you're going to move on to the art of public speaking. This is from the great courses. As with all of these items I'm recommending, I'm going to put that into a link down in the comments below. But this is a really great course on public speaking. I highly recommend it. And frankly, in the vocational track, you are going to have times when you are going to have to persuade someone that maybe your idea is a good one, especially if you're going to go the entrepreneurial route. So I highly recommend it. Literature, you just basically have 2 literature courses here. Classical authors, definitely. This is a good time to do that because it does require a little more thought to actually read those. And then you're going to pick up with some more current literature, 19th to the 21st century. Science. Science looks really different here. You're going to have a biology overview and a chemistry overview. That is to say, your student needs to learn some basic concepts of biology and chemistry because everyone needs to know some of that. But this is not a lab science, super technical course. This is just learning the basics. And then no science in 12th grade at all because they're going to be busy doing other things. Foreign language is totally optional at this point. If your student is really hooked on a foreign language and would like to pursue it, great time, but not necessary. For your social studies, history and geography, and principles of government, this is exactly the same as the college track because these are things that everyone should know, frankly. Vocational education and electives, we get really different. We've got, this is micro business for teens. This is an IEW, that Institute for Excellence in Writing course that I highly recommend. Even if your student is not actually going to be an entrepreneur, in this track, I still highly recommend it because, hey, you never know. You've got extreme ownership again. And you've got website design, because frankly, in this day and age, if you are an entrepreneur, you are going to need a website. Let's just face it. And then the last semester of 12th grade, hey, whatever applies to their career path, you can plug something in there. Now with electives, I have some specific suggestions. Military, leadership podcasts, books, and so on. If that's where your teen is headed, these are great things. Looking for some suggestions? Type into Google Marine Corps reading list, and you will come up with a fabulous list of books that will help your student in a military career. That's for 11th grade, 12th grade, physical fitness. Boot camp is not a walk in the park. So I'm just saying, you want your child to be very physically fit, devote a course time to it. Suppose your student is going to be an entrepreneur. They are either already running a business or they're going to start one. This is a good time to do that. And you've got your electives blocked out all the way through for that. If they're going into a trade, you have both theory books and practical books. A theory book would be something like how electricity works, right? Whereas a practical book would be how to build a deck, okay? So that's the difference between those. And then this last semester of 12th grade, both semesters of 12th grade, I highly recommend work experience. If you go into an apprenticeship, when you apply for that apprenticeship, having a little bit of work experience in the trade you're interested in is a fabulous boost, and it really will help your students solidify their interest in that particular field. And by work experience, you know what? A lot of guys in the trades, they will take a helper on that isn't skilled and is not doing skilled work, but is still there on the job site. And this applies even, suppose they want to be a hairstylist, great. How about a job as a receptionist in a hair salon? Just saying, work experience is a great thing here. So you got more holes in this in the vocational track, but that's because the stuff that you're doing down here in electives is really going to take more time. So now let's move on to our last track, which would be the undecideds. And last but not least, we have the undecided track, which, as you can see, looks a little more like the college track because it kind of is the college track, more or less, just leaving that option open for your student. So for math, again, Algebra 2, Personal Finance, nothing in the second semester. Right here, you're gonna want to substitute in pre-calc and trig if your student decides at this point they're going to be a STEM major in college. English, we're doing something a little bit different here. This is another IEW course, Advanced U.S. History-Based Writing. It's kind of like in between what the college track was doing and what the vocational track was doing. It's kind of an in-between course. You will want to substitute in, just like in the other tracks, you're going to sub in Writing with Structure and Style, Level C, if your student has not done any IEW up to this point, but otherwise that's what you plug in. Then you're going to have the Art of Public Speaking, that great courses, video course, which is so wonderful. And then the last thing you'll plug in up here is the Elegant Essay. This is optional. If you get to this point in 12th grade and your student says, nah, I'm not going to go to college, then you might want to skip this. But we're going to leave it in for now, just as an option. English literature. We're going to have, we definitely have those more modern authors and the classical authors. Notice you're spending more time with these than in the vocational, really in the vocational track. That's because you're still on kind of a college track. Science is going to be biology and chemistry with labs, just like on the college track, because you're going to need it. This one I put in here in this particular track. It's logic. It's material logic, which is basically learning how to sift through what is true and what is not true, much more so than in like a traditional logic study. At this point, your undecided student could use some logical thought help. So we're just going to plug that in here, but that's all the logic for the rest of the 2 years. Foreign language, if you haven't done a modern foreign language yet, you need to. 2 years, just like in the college track. History and geography and principles of government does not change. Vocational education, this is going to get a little broader down here. I highly suggest Microsoft Office 101. In the undecided track, you just don't know where they're going. Why not have some good, solid office skills, no matter what? It's a helpful thing. Got extreme ownership. Down here you have career research. If they don't know what they're going to do and it's the first semester of 12th grade, they at least need to figure out what kind of job they want when they get out of high school, since they will be seeking employment at that point. No, they're not going to live in your basement playing video games. And then the second semester of 12th grade, hey, that's open, to be decided. Depends on where your student decides they're going to head off to. Electives are totally in the to be decided category down here. If your student has some specific passions to develop or they'd like to explore, this is the place to do it. If they've never really thought about it, this is the place to explore a few things. So that's why the electives, I didn't even try to make a suggestion here, because this is totally based on your student, their aptitudes, their gifting, their skills, right? So this pretty much wraps up scope and sequence for all 3 tracks. And next, after this, we are going to take a look at some actual resources.
So now we're up to my favorite part of this video, and that would be the product reviews. Yes, I'm going to give you my 3 favorite curriculum choices for 11th and 12th grade. Goodness knows I could give you way more than that, but I don't really want to make an hour-long video because I don't think you want to watch it. So we're just going to hold it to the top 3. So the first one is going to be the Intercollegiate Studies Institute Student Guides. I know that's a mouthful. We're going to look at each one of these in depth in just a minute, so let's just go with the title here. The next one's going to be Apologia Science, and the third is going to be Exploring Economics by Ray Notgrass. So now that we've got those on the table, let's turn the pages and dive in. So the first resource that I am recommending for 11th and 12th grade would be, yes, Intercollegiate Studies Institute Student Guides, ISI Student Guides. I love these things. These are a couple of titles that I happen to have on my shelves. They are not big books. They are fairly narrow. The typeface is fairly large. It's just strictly reading, but it's a great overview of whatever the topic is. In a minute, we're going to go look at their website because they have something really awesome there. But just suffice it to say that these things will fill in, especially in your Principles of Government courses. These are great. Not a tough read, but packed with information. So let's go look at that website now.
So this is the ISI, that's Intercollegiate Studies Institute website. And the reason we have come here is because I want to show you something really cool that you're going to have access to here. And that is these guys. Check this out. These are those guides that are just like the guides that I showed you that I have the bound copies of, but these are free ebook versions. How cool is that? I mean, you have all kinds of options here. These are just a few, but you've got, Student's Guide to Political Philosophy or to philosophy in general. How about a Student's Guide to Economics? These are great. They've got a whole slew of titles, as you can see here. The best part about all this is that not only are they downloadable, but did I mention that they are free? Hello? So this is a great way to fill in for those especially Principles of Government courses that you're looking for resources for. Here you go.
So my second highly recommended resource would be this one right here. This is Apologia Science. This one happens to be the biology text. This is a second edition. They now are working on the third edition. That's what's out for sale now. But this is great. This is going to be everything that you need for that college track science. Among other things, Apologia has a very, very thorough course presentation here. I mean, all of the topics that you really are going to want to see for a high school biology, it's all in here. This is very, very thorough. The other cool thing that you're going to find in here, I love this, is right here, experiments. That's right, lab science. Here you go. A lot of the experiments, like this one, use very common household materials. There are dissections in here. There is microscope work. You really have a couple of choices that Apologia gives you. You can do the dissection and microscope labs, or you can just literally skip them. You can Google most of it. Dissect a crayfish, you're going to get a video on that. If you're going to Google in some microscope slides, you're going to see a video of actual slides so that your student doesn't miss out on that. But hey, if you've got a student that pretty much is not enthralled with the idea of dissecting anything, you can avoid those. So the experiments themselves are very thorough. They've got the full procedure. They've got the objective up here at the top of the page. They give you a very good idea of what it is that you're looking for. These things are great. You can even get a student notebook for Apologia that gives your student a place to write down their experiment results. That sort of thing. But I cannot recommend Apologia Science highly enough because let's face it, teaching lab science at home can be a bit daunting. I mean, even for me, my degree's in biochemistry. I don't want to make up the labs. So here you go. This will be the resource that you need. Now, while we're on the topic of science, I'm going to throw in an extra here. And I'm going to show you, remember when I said you want to do an overview for the vocational track? Great Courses has you covered here. This is from the Great Courses. This is their chemistry. Yes, they have a workbook. You're going to ignore this for your vocational track, but you are going to be able to have your student watch not one, not two, but 3 videos that really give a great picture of chemistry and walk them through it. They watch a couple of these videos a week, and you have that overview that you need. So, science covered, right? My last resource that I have for you today that I'm going to recommend is Exploring Economics by Ray Notgrass. I love the Notgrass way of teaching. I have used them extensively in history, but I also love this one, Exploring Economics, because frankly, economics is a really important topic. If you don't understand it, things like national debt and deficit and, why do budgets matter? None of that's going to make any sense until you understand how economics work. So this has got all kinds of topics in it. It's got things like this, how markets work. It's got a whole chapter on investments. It's got things that have to do with the history of economics in our country. These are great. These lessons are very thorough. Many of them have information in them that gives your student the opportunity to weigh both sides of an issue. You have, on top of all of that, you even have in some of these, you will have an assignment. There is a quiz and exam book. I've never used that with my students, and I don't usually recommend it. But hey, if you want it to be a really rigorous quantitative study, you can use those. So another item that comes with this that you're going to want to have is the Stewardship of God's Riches here. This is readings in economics. These are essays on economic theory that really turn what is theoretical into something that is more concrete. I love these. This is something that Knotgrass is famous for, providing these extra resources. One last thing I'm going to throw in here for a really, really thorough look at economics. If your student's into it, this book is awesome. Henry Hazlitt takes economics and makes it pretty much economics for dummies, kind of, but a level above that. But anyway, all of these would be a very thorough presentation of economics in your homeschool high school. And that's it for today. Remember, choosing homeschool curriculum in the high school years is all about the prize. That's right, the end goal, as in where do you want your student to end up in life? And the answer to that question would be successfully managing the adulting thing, right? So if you'd like more about my homeschool high school philosophies and also more practical tips on how to teach homeschool high school, be sure to check out my homeschool high school playlist, right? I'll put a link to that at the very end of this video, but you can watch videos 1, 2, 3, and 4 since this is number 5 and we're closing out the series. So join me here next Wednesday for my next video, which would be a little item out of the Homeschool Teaching Toolbox. That's right, teaching elementary science. Yes, I have found this is an area that a lot of people get seriously confused, so we're going to dish right into that one. So let me leave you with the 3 strategies that we have here at Homeschool University. The first is to be practical. Common sense is a free gift. Drama and stress are not a natural part of homeschooling. Practical common sense is. Be purposeful is the second one. Pray with and for your children and for your homeschool. And the last one is be positive. You can do this because you are amazing.
Hey now, take a step outside and seize the day.